Right, welcome. So far we're getting into the nitty gritty of the second set of rules for the discernment of spirits that Ignatius gives us in the spiritual exercises. And this is the second rule, set of rules that are really ordered to a person who isn't going to be tempted just by outright evil or just sensual evils. It's going to be a little bit more spiritual and tone. This is a proficient. This is a person who's going through the illuminative way, and so the devil has to work his tactic as walking with a person that's in this disposition and trying to bring them around to his evil designs with more subtlety. And so that for that reason, we're urged even more to make really good examination of conscience and to draw near to our Lord in humility, and especially modeling the humility of Our Lady and getting her help, because she is the worst enemy of the devil because she's so humble. Now, rule number 5. We ought to pay close attention to the progression of thoughts. Right, so this is some good sound advice from St. Ignatius on how this is going to go. Because remember, if both God and the devil can use consolations that come with previous cause, then the way of distinguishing them is their directionality. And that isn't always something that we can have right off the bat. We have to look at a progression so we can know the direction. Now, we ought to pay close attention to the progression of thoughts. If the beginning, middle, and end of it are altogether good and tend entirely to what is right, that is a sign of the good angel's influence. It is, however, a clear sign that the line of thought originates from the influence of the evil spirit, the enemy of our spiritual progress and eternal salvation, if the thoughts which he prompts end up in something evil or distracting or less good than what the person had previously proposed to do, or if they weaken, disquiet, or confuse him, doing away with the peace, tranquility, and quiet experience beforehand. So, Jules Toner, our commentator on the exercises, says that this is one of the most important among all the rules which Ignatius gives us. So 14 here, 8, or 14 before 8 here. This is one of the most important ones, and pretty important, right? This directionality. Look at the beginning, middle, and end of the whole process. You got to look at it as integrally as possible. To see if it's really tending to good or is tending away from it. Actually, kind of simple, too. You're not going to know it just consolation right here. It's consolation with a tendency. Which one is it? If it's consolation without previous cause, then you're already there. It's direct, and you know it's God. But if it's coming from our own meditations or thoughts and things like that, the devil can get in there and move with that, and then try to bring it back around. He's going to try to pull it, but not direct. Not for one who's at this level. Now, the rule implies that we should allow the course of thought springing from spiritual consolation to progress freely until some clear sign of the evil spirit appears, as without any doubt it will if they are from his prompting. So instead of being a spiritual hypochondriac to say, oh my gosh, I'm having consolations, is it from God or is it not? That's not what we need to do, right? In one sense, if it's a good consolation and it's making you good, then it's good. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. If it's the devil trying to do something evil, you're bringing something good out of evil because you're extremely humble, because every time you go to prayer, you're trying to start and end with self-knowledge. You're growing in humility and gratitude to God. You're going to bring it back to Him. You're entrusting yourself to Our Lady, which really frustrates the devil. Like, this is a good counterattack, is to take the consolations and make good use of them. Are you making good use of them? Well, you've got to examine. Now, if there is a sign that is coming from the other guy, it's going to start showing itself, because he's not going to maintain the act, especially if you're making such good use of it, right? He's not going to maintain the act of giving you consolations if it's just making you more holy. That's not his goal. And besides that, it's frustrating for him just to console people. He doesn't want to do that. So he can do it for a little while, but he's not going to maintain it. Now, one mode of this kind of temptation I find interesting in St. Francis de Sales. He talks about the tactics of the devil too. And he talks about one way is trying to sacrifice the good for the perfect. And so he says this. An inspiration urging us to give up some true good we already possess in order to pursue a future good is suspect. So in order to give up an actual good right here to our potential better, suspect. Might not be wrong, but it's suspect, so be careful, right? He says that the enemy often tries to make us attempt and start many projects so that we will be overwhelmed with too many tasks and therefore achieve nothing and leave everything unfinished. Sometimes he even suggests the wish to undertake some excellent work that he foresees we will never accomplish. This is to distract us from the prosecution of some less excellent work that we would have easily accomplished. He does not care how many plans and beginnings we make, provided nothing is finished. He tries to get us chasing our tail, even if it's after good things or perfect. The spirit of the seducer holds us down to mere starts and keeps us content with flowery springtime. He is satisfied if we make many beginnings, provided we never finish anything. So it sounds very similar, right? He repeats himself in the Treatise on Divine Love, right? St. Francis de Sales. Very helpful. So how do we recognize the falsity here? Clear signs of the evil spirit at work means that it's going to tend to divert us from good and impel us either to a lesser good or maybe even to a greater good that is just potential and out there, right? Now, St. Francis de Sales says again, he says, those who follow his hellish suggestions in the belief that they are heavenly inspirations can usually be recognized because this is the disposition of the person. The person becomes headstrong, haughty, and ready to undertake or meddle in affairs. They can't deal with their own business. This is something that would come up in an examination. If these things are happening in you, then it might not be consolation from God, right? This is a good, clear sign that is tending towards something bad. Under the pretext of zeal, these persons subvert everything, criticize everyone, rebuke everyone, and find fault with everything. They are men without self-control, without consideration, who put up with nothing. Very fascinating set of lists of what it starts looking like whenever you're starting to be influenced by the other side, even through consolation. Now, compare this with somebody who has true devotion, specifically to Mary. This is from True Devotion to Mary by St. Louis de Montfort. He says that it makes one courageous in opposing the world and its fashions and maxims, the flesh and its weariness and passions, and the devil and his temptations, so that a person truly devout to our Blessed Lady is never changeable, irritable, scrupulous, nor timid. Very different kinds of dispositions whenever you, and why these two, right? Well, because these are the two at war, right? From the very beginning, the enmity between the woman and the serpent. So devotion here is so contrary to the devotion here that you'll get very different dispositions. So that's rule number 5, right? Check out remember our principle. If it's a consolation from previous cause, meaning it's coming from our meditations or something it didn't just happen to us, it could be from either God or the other guy. If it's good and it's causing good things, go with it. Doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's tending to bad, these are some of the telltale signs, and you'll know from the examen. And take heart. Everybody's going to have at some point a little bit of this, but we'll be more safeguarded if we are drawing near to our Lord and self-knowledge and humility and examining ourselves and submitting ourselves to Our Lady. Now, let's say if some of these things are happening. Does not mean that you're like possessed or something, right? That doesn't mean that this only means that you're being tempted and you're being pushed and pulled by an enemy that is bound to do it. And none of this is going to happen without God allowing it for our good. It's something medicinal. It could be the fact that we need to be humbled a little bit, that what we're trying to do is grow in self-knowledge. And so if we start stumbling on this a little bit, then as long as we're doing this regular examen and we have a habit of this, and we're even going to bring good out of the bad of having started to be taken advantage of in this sense. We can see that we need God more and more, and that's a good thing. so that it can actually cause progress, so long as we have the habit and the regularity of really trying to examine ourselves and make the best of all of it. Okay, next time we'll get into the next set of rules, but that was rule number 5.